And I gotta finish putting plots in the thing. Because I was bad, again. I've been busy, and then I figured out that I did half of the plots wrong. Alright, we're live on the Twitch, on the YouTube. And we need to stream that at potato quality. Hopefully that continues not being potato quality. Okay, life is good. Hooray. Okay. Good evening, one and all. Does Scotch stream count? I got Scotch in a color changing glass because I'm a true adult. So I was all excited that despite my internet problems last night, I lucked into the economic data for April, and then I downloaded it and it doesn't have the raw stats, so I can't make my graphs out of it, which breaks my heart. So we'll talk about their plots, but actually it might just be whiskey. It may not be proper Scotch. I have to double check. It's barrel aged. It's barrel aged in port barrels. It's delicious. So I didn't find any raw data in the MER this month, which means I can't make my plots, which means I can't do like our cache versus velocity graph, for instance. I'm such a fan of. I put a tweet out, but you know, it's the middle of the fucking night for CCP, so I didn't get a chance to look at it until right before the show, and I was like, why is my script broken? So that's where we are tonight. And I'm hoping to do this one a little more casual tonight because it still doesn't look like the anime war is actually doing anything, and like no destruction means there's not a lot to talk about here. Oops. So, yeah. I get to be that weirdo in on a Friday Cinco de Mayo, and instead of out drinking tequila, I'm talking about graphs to the internet because I like graphs. I like trains. So that's where we are. In sideways news, if you're following the dev stuff, ooh, it's going to be a squeaker if I get the Plex split handled in time. We might be one day late, which will break my heart. It won't. It'll just break. Yeah, it'll break for a day. And hopefully it won't be that catastrophic. It's more that I over-engineered myself into a fucking corner like a goddamn tryhard. So that's where we are there. Nope. Don't give a shit. Nope. Kind of interesting. What about bombers? Bombers are on here, right? Bombers aren't doing anything. And I know I'm broadcasting right into the heart of Dirk McGurk's show, so I don't expect to get a ton of people here today. So you guys get all the best secrets because, well, yeah, if I could portion them off week to week, I'd be much better at this. So we're going to kill those, and then we need to fill these out, which are here. Running a little on the late side tonight, which I always say that every freaking week. Alright, so we've got all of the fucking data. God damn it. Is the 400 day fucked up? No, the 400 day is not fucked up. Hurrah. Okay. So we've got all the base graphs done, which means we gotta go get the special graphs. And then once we have the special graphs, oops, not those. Moon Goo. Let's take a look at Moon Goo, see if there's anything interesting going on there. Real quick. Nope. Cadmium's a little interesting. Chromium's a little interesting. Hafnium a little bit. I mean, I hate talking about R16s, but that seems to be where all the action is this week. Let's go into here, make sure that we're not missing anything really great. Titanium did a dip. That's interesting. Gleam is a little interesting. Slasher is kind of interesting. Let's put that on the list. Do we care about the Neros? I don't think we care about the Neros. Accelerant decryptors are taking a nosedive. Do I care? I don't know if I care. Let's put covert ops cloaking devices in the list. Kali, Koida, vodka is peaking. That's kind of funny. The Oneros we'd already talked about last week, and I think it's just residual. Tranus, blah 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 blah. Okay. No, don't care. High Soda Research Labs are peaking. That's kind of funny. We will put that in the thing. Vigil Fleet issue did trigger my doodads, so let's talk about that. This one we want to go to zoom in and do should probably talk about rattlesnakes. Extra Navy issue, Mercurial, Gila, Ishtar is steady. Okay. Almost done, almost done. And then I can talk like a real person. Let's put the Orthrus in there. And then let's put in that. Thulium. Drone transceivers are on a tear, which means we gotta put those up here, don't we? Yeah. Wow, there's a lot of really interesting corner stuff this week. Just a lucky week, I guess. Oh, and Falcons. Holy crap. Okay. So that should be all of the prep done with, 5 minutes to spare, like a real professional. A professional what? I am still not sure. But let's make sure we've got everything running on my side correctly. I don't have this in the right place. Dupe. Chris, your range looks like it came straight out of the 70s or the 50s. All right. Okay, so thank you everybody who is tuning in. We are broadcasting live through the power of the internet to both YouTube and Twitch. It simulcast at the same time. You get the same great place in same great taste in two different places. If you want to get us in full glorious 1080p, you should go tune in on YouTube. That being said, welcome to the show. If you have questions, feel free to chat up in the chat. I do read it, and if you want to have any questions answered, whether that be Market 101 questions all the way up through why the hell are we doing this instead of taking tequila shots, feel free to put it there. I don't tend to answer questions during the show, so we'll start the show at the top of the hour. I don't tend to answer questions during the show. We try to get one big run through so that everybody can get all the right news, and I can make my editor's life as easy as possible. But we also do a 30-minute Q&A afterwards, so do keep tuned in. I do read the chat. We will go through the thing, and to Jared Steffens, why we don't do tequila shots and this show is that I'll just be asleep. and I don't see how drunken graphing is really that entertaining, but we'll see if we get there, because the drink of tonight is scotch. So let's see. Next FAQ, all of the graphs are made in-house. They're generated using R, and they will be and the whole backend is written in Python. If you are interested at all in the way that that the stuff works, you should join us on the Discord. I do try to make all of our development open source and open to the public, so that not only can you guys look through the code, but we can, teach each other how to make better code. With that being said, if this is your first time tuning in, I do have one bad piece of news, is that once we hit episode 100, this show is basically done. I want to thank everybody who got us here, but we were going to go into summer hiatus anyway, and I'm hoping to come back with more broadcasty stuff, but I would really like to start focusing on real life topics and moving towards a more developer training and data science for regular Joes kind of thing, so we can get people running in the thing. And I have some plans on how to get there, but I intend to use the off time to get it all shored up and out there. In the meantime, we will still be generating code for Eve. There's still some topics I'd like to tackle, and Eve gives us a great jumping off point for a lot of real life stats and stuff. And there'll be some blogs coming out about that if you care about data sciencey stuff. Let's see. With that, like I said, the show runs about 45 minutes. We're going to talk about all of the market news for the week, what you should be watching into the weekend, what to expect ahead of the Plex split. It should be hopefully the insight you need to sort of tune your own gut is the purpose of the show. Also, I got to give a big shout out to all the other market casters going on right now. DeLone Wolf, who does, I think, Saturdays midday at Eve Talk. There's Christopher Mellon, who does a daily minerals update. There is Rodin, who does, I believe, Tuesdays at 0100, is doing a very similar show to this, except much more laser focused. So, yeah, and being able to generate the stuff on your own, you can kind of do that now if you can suffer through the V1 setup. I'm trying to make it so that by the time we would have come back from hiatus, so in the September-ish timeframe, we'll have our V2 data stream up together. And if we can do that, then there's nothing stopping you from being able to launch your own version of Prosper on your own hardware and collect and use the data at your own leisure, or help give us PRs to expose our data to the internet. So that's the plan. Because I'd very much like to take a lot of the lessons we're working on behind the scenes and make it so that if you guys wanted to learn Python or you wanted to get better at Python stuff, basically I do half of the work for you already, and you just have to fill out the rest. So I'm trying to get there. There are some tools available, and I'm trying to make it better. If you want to get really good individual item reporting, I'm a really big fan right now of AtomForEve.eu. He is one of our profit partners, and that's profit like Joshua, not profit like dollars. And the stuff the profiles he makes on an individual item basis, I think are really powerful for the general trader. And yeah, that's kind of where I've been pointing people to. If you can't get enough graphs in your diet, there, go to Adam the number 4 eve.eu and go check out his tools. With that, it looks like we are past the time where I should have started. So let me ditch that. Let me see if I can get the big yawn out. Holy shit. Real professional here. All right. That button makes the humming go away. Somehow. There we go. And that button. That button. That button. All right, good evening and welcome to the latest episode of the Eve Prosper Market Show. I'm your host, Lockefox, and here we are with episode 95 of the Eve Prosper Market Show. Without further ado, let's get straight into it and start where we always do, talking about the show. Thank you, everyone who tuned in live. I know we are one day late. Thank you for everybody who can tune in here on Cinco de Mayo. Had internet problems last night. Windstorm blew in, made everything unstable. I figured a full show with no interruptions was better than half a show and a bunch of swearing. So here we are this week. And so let's go ahead and get straight from the top. Number one, if this is your first show, I have some terrible news for you. The show is ending at episode 100. That's only a few more weeks left. We're going to be heading into space retirement and looking to live off in developer land. Now, don't be sad. Don't unsubscribe. We do plan to continue making content. I just can't guarantee that it's going to be Eve focused moving forward. If you are looking for more market news and more market content, well, don't fear. There are plenty of other Eve market guys working really hard these days. You may not have heard of them. Number one is DeLone Wolf at Eve Talk. He does a very similar show to this. I believe he's on Saturdays broadcasting. Number two is Christopher Mellon, also on YouTube, is doing a daily update on the minerals and ice markets being powered by some of our graphs here. And number three is Rodin over at EVNT TV, is broadcasting on Tuesdays at 0100, Wednesdays at 0100. That's Tuesday night U.S. time. And he's doing a little more predictive, a little more personal sort of speculator show. So if you can't get enough of market stuff, go get subscribed to those guys as well. Number two, keep subscribed here because we're going to be coming back hopefully at the end of the summer with more content for developers, trying to get maybe an IRL split lean to this, try to get some more editorial content out, start trying to make it so that everybody can do data science the way we do data science is kind of the plan. There's been a lot of interest from others that to sort of be an everyman's show on that, and I'd very much like to start making something in a partially derivative programming throwdown. What's the other one? Data skeptic sort of bend, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys came along with me for the ride. With that, the last little pieces of news is get subscribed on, all you got to remember is Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and our blog. Do join our Discord. Links are down in the doobly-doo below. That is the very best place to get in touch with me. I do love talking to you guys, and I do love answering your questions, no matter if they are Market 101 questions or really complicated philosophical ones, I guess. I haven't got any of those yet. Like, can God make a burrito so spicy that not even he can eat it? Let's see. The last piece that I want to touch on before we get into the show proper is that we do have a Patreon, and it will run until the end of June. Why should you support a Patreon for a dying show? Good question. If you want to keep the profit endpoint that we just released up and running in perpetuity, every bit of money that goes into our Patreon from here on in is going towards solutions to make sure that that endpoint stays up as long as absolutely possible. We're working right now to get it easier to shard out so that we can drop it on something like DigitalOcean and just keep it running in perpetuity. So your dollars are specifically going to keep things up and running for the Eve community as long as possible. We should be in a good place to do so, but of course, every dollar counts. Now, you don't want to send us money, I completely understand. Do get subscribed. Do tell your friends about the Greatest Market Show on the air. And do try to do come join our Discord so that we can all talk shop. So without further ado, I want to move straight into the news and actually get this show rolling. That button. All right. Let's start where we always do, talking about Plex. So Plex is in a very weird holding pattern ahead of the Plex split coming on Tuesday. Just a few days left. One quick note, if you are using our profit endpoint, I am having a hard time making sure we're ready for the Plex split. Next week might be a bad one for me, and we might end up with a skipped show or stuff because of updates. I have been scrambling my butt off trying to make sure that we're ready for that split. And the fact that CCP is not really willing to backload the data is kind of screwing me. So I'll keep things going as best I can. I'm really hoping that they backload the data. I tried to make a good case to the people in charge to backload the data. We'll see if it sticks. And I got to get in touch with our other dependency, Eve Market, not Eve Market Data, Eve Central, to make sure that we keep collecting data through the split. So it shouldn't be a problem, but, well, Eve Central has a nasty habit of bouncing IDs that don't exist, and I'm sort of at their mercy to when they update their endpoint. So Plex staying steady, staying around 125. If we look at the 1 year plot, this is a lot more generous than I really think is fair. We've been on this tear going up, but we are flattening out pretty hard here at the top, just about at 1.25. I expect, going into the Plex split, I expect a 15% drop, which puts us right above 1.0 billion. We could go slightly under. It is a possibility. I would not bank on it, though, because I think there's going to be enough holding pressure to keep things standing. As we look, we saw a big glut of Plex come onto the market as people are looking to cash out at the top. Interesting to see that so many new orders hit the market, but the prices didn't really fall. This might signal that there's a lot of orders put up to try and catch an upswing. But that's a lot of pressure. We basically tripled the number of Plex for sale at the moment, but we're keeping prices steady. Let's see. So let's talk about the Plex split mechanically for a second. Do note that once we go into the downtime for 119.5, every Plex order will be canceled, and outstanding orders are supposed to be refunded their fees. But according to Revra, there is a distinct possibility they might not be, that there might be a bug, and it may not have been fixed yet. It was a surprise to CCP once it was brought up to them at FanFest. So I would be I would be cautious, especially if you're one of these guys with a lot of extra stuff in there. I would hope that we are going to slide down into a pre-Plex price around 1.2, a pre-split price around 1.2, that this extra pressure was going to push us down. Interesting to see that it didn't. I'm not really sure what is going on right this second. Again, I sort of expected to go down to 1.2 and then down to 1.0 once the split hits. And we might actually see it go down in two chunks where we go down to 1.1 or just under 1.1 on Tuesday and Wednesday. We gain back a little bit, heading back towards to 1.5. Everybody puts out their panic blogs about Plex is crashing, the sky is falling. We double down to 1.0 is kind of the pressure I expect to see. I expect to see a two-tiered thing going on here where the marketeers are ready on Tuesday to execute on the split and gobble up the cheap Plex, and then the weekend warriors to come and panic once the new value's been hit. At least a lot of the murmurs I hear is that there's a lot of ARM that's going to be coming into Plex, and kind of have to think of that like birthday money to a lot of these players who may not already be invested in Plex, the kind of people who might not have more than 1 or 2 billion liquid at any time. All of a sudden getting this multi-billion-esque infusion, I expect a lot of that money to come rushing into the market and come flying out of Plex as people cash out that birthday money. We'll see. I'm actually ready to be disappointed that we'll just stay steady at 115 and I'll eat all of my words. But that's sort of the expected effect, the story I'm going to tell. Next, moving on to skill trading. If you are looking to maximize your speculative dollar, the strategy I've been telling people who have asked is that I would be cashing out Plex now, trying to get your 125, and moving that into injectors. If you're the sort of person who's looking to sort of do some liquidation, try to get some skill points out of your thing and jump onto injectors, because I expect injectors to move much slower. Again, we see that despite the price of Plex rising pretty linearly, we see a lag in the rise for injectors. We just see margin getting eaten rather than prices actually getting pushed all the way up. This is sort of the hedge I expect to see going into the thing, is that it will fall. It will just fall more slowly. So if you were thinking of liquidating some skill points, putting some brains on the market, I would try to get your cash now, wait for the split, buy up extractors after the split, and then sell the injectors by the weekend before it has time to really collapse. Pressures are reasonably low. Prices are staying relatively steady. And though I expect it to track the price of Plex, I expect it to do so slowly. So this is sort of your hedge against Plex problems in the short term. I still expect, this is basically, if you're sitting on Plex right this second and you want to do the very best move possible is cash out now, rebuy in at 10% lower. If you're looking to do skill injectors, this would be a great time to get into injectors, though it's coming down is the other half of that problem. So that is, I've been asked a couple of times by people who wanted to liquidate skill points, and that was my babbling advice on that particular topic. See, this is why we don't drink on the show, is that I just start babbling and talk about how smart I am. Because the world totally needs more of that. Moving on to market indexes. Things are staying relatively steady. I don't think this graph is correct. This graph is not correct. Give me a second. I'm going to fix that. I'm sorry, Chris. Please forgive me. I'm making your life difficult. Oops. Come on, slides. Net trade 5.5. Babble's only fun if I've got another co-host who can help rein me in. So now back into the meat of it, because I am a professional. Let's look at the real graph for net trade. Net trade, the interesting things to see here is general weakness in the mineral markets, overall strength in the RMT markets ahead of the split, but a downtrending across the board outside of RMT. So so this is the rant. So I had this rant last week that the anime war is bullshit and you guys just fucking shoot each other. And why aren't you shooting each other? And like, once again, we're in another week of downward pressure across the board. We really need a good war, and everybody's just slinging memes instead of actually killing each other. So I'm a little upset here watching the mineral values track down, watching the ship values stay flat, and there's just not a ton of market stuff to going on here, and it's kind of breaking my heart. We have upward trends in a lot of cash getting sucked into the RMT market, but the total net trade staying steady. So that tells me that people are walking out of investments elsewhere and trying to park into Plex, but I don't know. This is weird. I wouldn't be buying Plex right now, and because you should be waiting to buy, you should be holding on to cash to buy Plex after the split when everybody comes rushing to the market to get their free money. I don't know. It's weird. I don't like it. It's making me mad. Looking at kills, again, another week in kills as we track down. Destruction staying steady at 1 trillion ISK. I would really like to see 10% more destruction going on. I'd like to see Keepstars getting blown up. But yeah, no, nothing's happening. It's a quiet week, and without this pressure, it's really hard to chew through the. It's really hard to keep the gears turning in the market. Next, so the MER data, the monthly economic report, was released today. So thank God that that came out. That we had the delay. We were able to put the data in. But bad news, the raw CSV data is not in the monthly economic report, which means I can't run my frickin' reports. So, hi Quant, I love you, but can I have the raw data, please? I didn't realize until like 30 minutes before I went on the air that the data was missing. So I went ahead and sent out a tweet to the guys, and I won't attribute to malice what is probably just a bug, a copy-paste bug. But I wish I had that data. The good news, the very good news this month, is that the mining data is fixed. Hallelujah. Finally get to see the mining report actually be accurate. Interesting to see that since the Rourke nerf, which you can see very clearly destroying the returns here, we've seen a slump in production productivity, and that's actually pretty interesting. So I've said this on a couple of shows, both here and elsewhere, that I didn't think the actual mining yields coming out of Rourke's was a bad idea, because I thought that it gives you an opportunity to basically say supers cost half as much. And if supers cost half as much, well, then you can start being really diabolical and sort of do a 1-2 punch and say, well, there's all these new supers out there, and well, everybody and their mom has a super. So you know what? We're going to drop the EHP on them 25% or 30%. And now you guys can go ahead and put them to work, but they're going to explode. So, but they're only 10 billion. So like, there's not that big a step between a Pimpy Dread and a super in that case. And it becomes a much more level engagement curve, but looks like we're coming back from there. It looks like a lot of the mineral prices are tracking up so that we're going to be talking about 15 billion ISK supers instead of 10, which I'm a little sad about. I was hoping to keep the crazy mining activity going because I have opinions about the money supply. I would love to have them on this show, but I can't have them on the show because we didn't have the raw data. So moving on. Also great to see the key economic figures out with the updated mining values. Interesting to see that Delve is basically the sum total of everywhere else. Still, despite the nerf, and Delve and Declan leading the chart in NPC bounties. Like, this is some serious bounty making. So my worry here in the long term continues to be that I think bounty payouts are too high and they're leading to instability. And so if you go check out, I was on Talking in Stations last week and CCP Quant was on there too, and we talked about how, so I've said for months that you can run a hot system. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of the numbers being as high as they are. The problem is the hotter the system, the faster things can go wrong. And now with the rest of the market cooling off and we're heading into a protracted peacetime with not a ton of activity coming into the summer, which tends to be the lowest activity time of the year, but we still see 2 trillion ISK a day getting printed in NPC bounties. We're going to run into a lot of problems over the summer with the Plex prices if we don't start seeing this turn around. And Quant had expressed some, well, we'll talk about that. Quant had expressed in the podcast that CCP would like to, so if you look at, like, looking at this chart, the thing that it doesn't say, that isn't inherently obvious, is that 90-something% of the ISK getting printed into the game is coming from bounties. And that means that of the tools in CCP's disposal to add money through other means, whether that be through more blue loot or through different missioning platforms or other special events, other mechanical things they could add, are balanced against the fact that all of the money in the game is coming out of these old school rats. And so it had been my hope that we wouldn't have to directly nerf rats, that we'd be able to increase the AI, increase the complexity, and by doing so, reduce the ISK per hour, increase the ISK per effort, increase the effort per ISK. But I don't think that's going to happen. And frankly, we're in a spot where if you are a crystal ball looker and you're trying to talk about where we will go, we could be seeing a nerf before the summer recess. I would actually hope that Quant and Recurve are talking right now ahead of vacation time to see if there's anything that can be done ahead of the winter sprint to get this addressed before CCP takes its summer vacations. So this is worrying. This is problematic, and if it doesn't get a cap on it very soon, we could be running off the rails in a spectacular fashion, and that much extra cash in the game can have a poisonous effect down the line. Once players have a thing, it's really hard to unhave the thing, you know? Like that's kind of the problem here. Moving on to minerals. We start in titanium staying steady at what's that, 4647. Not a lot of volume going on. Again, things are kind of quiet this week. Supplies are tracking up. The price is slumping down to 4.5. It's an okay buy-in point if you can get one of these sub 4.5 buy orders, but I don't. It's a risky bet, and Trit is heavy, and I don't really love speculating in it. Next, pyrite. Things are staying steady between 5.5 and 5.8. Not a lot of action going on here. The volumes, again, staying a little bit lean. Not as lean as we expected. Volumes are staying relatively steady, so prices should stay in the band they are in now. Nothing to say here for speculators. I did expect that supplies would rise slightly going into this week, but I think that lowered activity in general is causing things to stay quiet otherwise. Next, Mexilon. So if you've been watching our profit endpoint at Atom for Eve, it believes that Mexilon will be at 100 on something like March 12th. Sorry, not March 12th, May 12th. It keeps saying that. And I don't disagree that we can get to 100. It's just that we need a war to break out to get there. So things are staying steady in the 75 range. Volumes are a little bit lean. This low 72 is a really great chance to buy in, but you're targeting an 80 selling order, and unless things get really interesting before Memorial Day, you might get screwed. So it's not a bad bet to jump in on, but I don't know if you'll make any positive return on it. Like, I don't think you'll lose money. You just won't make any money, which is not a terrible bet to make. Next, Isogen is finally coming out of its hole. We've been at bouncing around 50 for a little bit, and we're at like 53, looks like, here on the chart. Again, volumes very thin. Volumes are tracking up in order counts, so I expect this positive pressure to come back down under 52. We'll see if this trend sticks. It's a 50-50 shot on whether it stays. But here, staying the 50 to 53 sort of this sort of range is kind of where I expect it to stay. Noxium. Now, Noxium was interesting. We saw it spike, drop, spike, and now it's dropped again on pretty high volumes. Looks like there might be some extra speculative action going on here. If we zoom on in, there's still some action to be had, I think. Watching the supply chain collapse means that we could be in for another spike here. Now, the space here is not quite the 10% I'd like to see. You'd really need to be buying in closer to 350 and aiming for something at a 420 every day. But the prices are staying relatively steady. If we look here, like, it's hard to believe we're going to get all the way back up to the 420 point we hit, but it's possible. It's just unlikely. It's weird to see supplies this lean right here, and as volatile as they are, we keep adding and contracting 50 million or 100 million units off the market. It's an unstable, volatile spot. I'm kind of interested that prices aren't as volatile here in the end prices. Zydrine, one that I've been picking on for months, is back under 1K, just under. And supplies are peaking under the 100 million mark. So going into the weekend, we might see a peak. And if you're really fast on your game, you might be able to get one of these 95 to 980 to 950 ISK buy orders and sell for a 105, which isn't a bad markup for like a 1-day hold. But it's risky. I don't really love it, but I'm tempted with how low the supplies are at the moment. Moving on to Megasite. Megasite has seen a recent resurgence, going from 13 to 1350, and not a lot to say here in the volume market. It's a little bit lean, but not that lean. We're seeing supplies drop again here, just like in Zydrine, so we could see some more action closer to 1.4K. It's hard to say we can make it all the way to 14 from where we're standing, and there's not a lot of buy order possibility right here. But yeah, it's Moving on to Morphite, we had said a couple weeks ago we were looking really good, just over 10K. There were some spikes even higher, and we're back down to 9.5K this week. Again, supplies are back where they were before, and we're back in a buy regime here at 9.5. If you can get under 9.0 buy orders, I mean, take them. It's free money. But until the gears of war really start turning, there's nowhere for this Morphite to go. Now, I will reiterate that I do have a long bet on moon materials that Morphite could be a quiet sleeper. And this would be a great opportunity to be slowly building a stockpile over the next 3 months, 4 months ahead of the new release. But it's a risky bet, and you could end up holding a lot of material for and not see the return. But like this is the sort of thing I would believe for similar to buying P4s ahead of Citadel. It seems obvious. Well, it may not seem obvious. It sort of seems obvious, and everybody sort of panics, and then they forget, and then they panic, and they forget. And my bet here is purely a speculative statistics one, and Fozzie could ruin my day on this one at any point. It basically stands on the back of doubling the returns on moon materials, doubling the number of units returned, and that dumping the prices of T2. But if we dump the prices of T2, we raise the number of units bought and sold, and I don't think that there is that much extra Morphite supply to hold up that doubling of the demand curve. So if this were me, and I were looking to build a position ahead of the moon mining update, I would be basically taking 10% or 15% of my profit margins week over week, and I'd be playing generous Morphite buy orders. I'd be playing something under a 9K, maybe some of these 875s. I'd be watching this market every week and trying to just get up, 1,000 units here and 1,000 units there, get to basically 10 billion ISK worth of them over the course of months, just onesie twosie sort of thing. If I can't get paid on it, like, okay, I have 10 billion ISK of this stuff that I don't get an extra benefit from, and I have to unspin and try to get my 10% margin, I only take home 1 billion ISK. If my long bet is correct, then, and the price doubles or triples or quadruples because we hit a supply shortage, then here I am in JITA with my 10 billion ISK worth of units, and I can come and reap all of the rewards once the market panics. It's going to take a lot of patience, and I wouldn't put all of my money in it right this second. I would do it slowly, and I'd build a stockpile like week over week, the same way you build a savings account. It's making a lot of assumptions, and it's a reasonable amount of risk, but we're going to do it in portions so we don't end up with one big wallet blob screwing up our accounting for months. We do it little by little by little. That's the advice here. Moving on, because we are behind schedule. Moving on to fuel that makes the world turn round. Interesting to see that oxygen isotopes continue to climb. I'm wondering how many people may have been switching their reaction farms to Galente. It's not the best idea. Galente gets you more silo space, and it's my personal one because I'm lazy, but Caldari lets you put 2 reactions on 1 tower. We're seeing the prices start to fall on the nitrogen isotopes, but continue to climb on the oxygen isotopes. The other long bet ahead of the moon mining change is that helium and hydrogen are really good buys here at 650. And again, if you wanted to buy in little by little, so you didn't get completely screwed, this is not a bad chance, because remember the dev blog says that even though we're not going to have the traditional POS architecture, the recipes for the advanced materials will need to use isotopes to build them. So I expect everything to sort of head towards convergence at about 750, 800. And if you believe me, oh man, is this 650 a frickin' steal? It's a long bet. It's a risky bet. And it's not going to pay off for months. You could be holding the ball until December, unfortunately. So I'd be really careful about putting a lot of money into this, but it's tempting as hell for me. Next, looking at blocks, not a lot interesting going on here. We're just seeing everything sort of stay in its regular strata. Oxygen is a little overvalued given the position it's in, and the hydrogen helium fuel blocks are way overvalued given the production margin. I'm actually really surprised they are that positive right now. So I mean, if you're sitting on blocks, then that's actually a great margin. Or if you can build them this week, this is a good one. Strontium is our canary in the coal mine for Sov warfare. This is our number 2 stat for saying that the anime war is bullshit. Seeing as there have been no big buyouts of supply, and we just keep stacking and stacking and stacking this stuff to the rafters, well, that tells me that nobody's actually fighting each other. So anime war is just a forum war, which is really the most depressing thing I've seen in EVE in a very long time. That we'd rather sling memes than actually cause spaceship explosions is really depressing. Next, heavy water. We've been watching. This is kind of our Rorqual, one of our Rourke indexes right now. Supplies are stacking up again. A little bit interesting to see that it looks like there may have been some Rourkes coming back online, but with looking at the April data and the mining stats, I don't know how much really was happening. So this supply buyout is a little interesting, but we're recovering back to the 200 million units. Not a lot to say here on the price side. All right, moving on to outlier analysis. Looking across the board at advanced materials, there looks like there's some volatility in the middle with hypersynaptic fibers, nanotransistors, and fulleриdes and phenolic composites. That section is looking like a good speculative buy at the moment. This slump in nanotransistors isn't backed up by anything in the Moon Goose side. So I I'd be interested to see, like, this is a pretty good buy right now at the 2,600 a unit. I don't know when this will turn around. I'd be looking to sell at 3,000 again if I were buying in here. Phenolic Composites is looking like if you had bought in, it might start tracking up soon. And Fullerized looks like it's taking a hard dip into the weekend. Would be a good chance to slurp up a few units just for speculations purposes. But otherwise, and terahertz metamaterials are on a tear for no particular reason. But otherwise, things are staying pretty quiet. When I went through the raw Moon Goose stats, I didn't see anything really jumping out at me. You may disagree if you go check the R16s. So things like, I'm going to put myself on the spot here. I want to say scandium, not titanium, but thulium. No, thulium's one of the higher ones. A lot of the less rare middle components are showing some instability, but not a whole lot to say in those markets right this second. Actually, the metamaterials, I lied. The metamaterials, both plasmonic and terahertz, are on a tear. So if you bought in, now's a good time to sell. But I didn't see a good buy-in opportunity here going on. So moving on to PI4, this would be a good chance to start buying up onesie twosie units ahead of releases. I think the prices are going to fall even further over the summer as we go into the summer slumps. So I don't know if I'd start building my Moon Goose stockpile. That's not the word I'm looking for. The new refinery stockpile yet. I'd actually probably be aiming for something in late July. Try to get in the prices there. It's kind of a weak spot right this second, and you might start seeing some weirdness at the split as people may be trying to liquidate stockpiles to get more cash. There might be some weirdness, but that's a really long bet, and I don't know if I can say that with a straight face. And then next I can do this. In the salvage market, drone transceivers are going nutso. Almost doubled in price in the last 2 weeks. There hasn't been a release yet, so it's not like there was a change in the drop rates, but and there's not been a change in the supply and demand really going on down here. But prices just keep on climbing, and unfortunately, I don't have a zoom in on this one, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on in this market, but it is completely on a tear going on at the moment. Next, looking at slashers is an interesting one. We looked at all the minerals, and everyone's basically flat, and then we come into slashers, which are basically just minerals. They take almost no effort or energy to do the thing, and the prices have dumped pretty hard over the last week. Looks like there may have been some weird speculative buyouts and some weird people playing a weird game against each other, but prices are low. And if you need slashers, now prices have been slashed. I'll show myself out. Next, I do owe somebody a shout out on this one. Sebastian pointed out that the Vigil Fleet issue was going a bit nuts this week. Looks like there has been some action to pump up the price and dump it. This might have been somebody playing along from Faction Warfare loyalty points, trying to make a quick buck ahead of a sellout. It's interesting to see the supply chain get hobbled, prices come up, and then a huge sell-off of 100 units compared to the general 20 per day. Here, somebody set a trap and sprung it gloriously, and hopefully they made a whole ton of money off of it. we don't usually see successful what's the word I'm looking for? Manipulation. A lot of people think they can manipulate the uh, price of stuff, and that they're just so smart, and I'm going to buy all this out and then reset the price and make a ton of money off the supply chain. And what usually happens is they buy out all the prices up to a target price, and they think they can resell everything at that target price, but then all the rest of the market sort of flows back in to take advantage of the same price that you tried to pump up, and the prices fall right down. You lose your freaking shirt on all the expensive units you bought out to get to the price you wanted, and this was a really excellent manipulation play, is what it really looks like to me, where somebody came in and probably over the course of a week or so saw the number of units really get low. He then sprung the trap, reset the price, and because the volume was so low, he wasn't as susceptible to people coming and flowing back in, because there just aren't that many Vigil Fleet issues out there. It's not that popular a ship. And he didn't set the price so high as to be ludicrous, and got to enjoy 2 or 3 good days of speculated price. So this is how you do it, boys, is that you look for something that's a bit on the low side. You try to make sure you can spring the trap in such a way that the market can't just flow back in under you. And it's really it's a really well done. I know it doesn't look like much, but this is well done. This is the way you're supposed to do it. You're not just supposed to buy out every unit of Trit and think that you're the king of Trit. That's not the way to do it. Oh, and if you want to go look for opportunities like this, you should go to adamforeve.eu, and at the bottom of the profile pages for every item is a buy and sell order depth chart, and that will give you a better look at how many orders are between you and a target price, both on the buy and the sell side. And that's been one of my favorite tools to mess with when I've been doing some onesie twosie speculation myself, is to go into a thing, look at the profit outlook, and say, oh well, the buy volume there's only a few orders at the buy price where it is now, and then there's a big gap to price 10% lower. Well, I can go place my buy order in there and take the profit outlook saying that it's going to be positive, wait for a swing to come down and give me a bunch of items, and then as it swings back up, sell at the top where profit tells me to sell it, and make extra money. So that's at least the way I see these plays. Next, Rattlesnake is in for a nosedive at the moment. Supplies are super hot, and I'd expect the sell orders to dip under 350, maybe even a little bit lower going into the weekend. So if you need rattlesnakes, now is a great chance to stock up. I don't know if this is a good speculator target yet. We really need this buy floor to fall a little bit lower. I'd really like to see 320 if it were me, but that's because I'm greedy. But with this many units on sale, we may end up seeing this floor give way down to the 330 mark, which would be okay enough. If you can get 330 and get out over 360, like, it's not a bad profit. Next, Orthus was another interesting one. This one isn't usually on our radar, but looks like there was a surge in prices, but we're coming back down to the regular spot. If you are a betting man, this would be a pretty decent chance to be buying up into this weekend. Though I don't like betting on 3 patterns. I do like betting on 2 patterns, and we could be in for an overcorrection under the 220 million mark. And if you can get under 220 million, I think that's a pretty decent buy, and it's easy to get 10 or more units of this stuff and actually sell it. And target something over a 240 million, and I think you could be counting your money to the bank. It is a gamble. You could buy in at 220 and have to sell at 220, which would suck. But I don't think we're going to go down to 210 is the way I sort of expect this to go. And you can look like a super genius betting ahead of the curve here. And I think it's an interesting opportunity to make, and it has an opportunity to soak up a lot of money if it actually works. So we'll be watching this over the next couple of weeks to see if I know what the hell I'm talking about. Next, the Naga spiked out. Again, minerals are staying flat, but Naga has spiked up 10%, a little bit more than 10%. Not sure if this is a signal of a burn Jita event, or if just somebody has decided that Nagas are the new shit. We're not seeing a lot of volume practice here, a lot of action in the volume markets, so not sure exactly what's driving this. But it's an opportunity. I'd be very careful watching this. It could be a precursor to some military action. Maybe if you want to put your tinfoil on super tight, goons are going to lock down Jita over the weekend of the Plex split just to mess with people. Would be really funny, but I really doubt they can do it. Next, the Falcon is doing another particular spike. This one, for you buyers out there, I would be watching for it to overcorrect down to, let's say, the 210 mark. It might go a little bit below. What ends up happening a lot of these times in this kind of product is that prices spike, producers get enthusiastic, they overproduce, and the prices nosedive. And what I'd be looking for is a 200 buy order to hold on to, because I don't know if we'll see this pattern a third time or if we'll just stay flat over the summer. It could spike again, and I think 200, 210 isn't a bad buy-in, but I wouldn't be wanting to buy more than 5 or 6 of these for my portfolio. Another interesting doubler this week, not quite doubler, let's say 50%, is the Explosion Deflection Field 2. Again, not sure if this is tied to the Naga. Again, this smells funny to me that the Naga and the Explosion Deflection Field 2s both spiked the same week. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. I just don't know what. Here's the part where somebody's doing something and all I can see are the waves in the pool. I can't actually see what they're doing. Covert Ops cloaking device has been rather volatile and looks undervalued at the moment. So if you wanted to buy up a few units, this is not a bad bet for beginners. I'd especially think that buying in at buy orders right now, targeting a 4.6 million buy order is not a bad place to park a little bit of play money. We're looking like we might be hitting one of the technical analysis conversion points and targeting a 5 million sell-off. You know, I like, who's going to go wrong really buying Covert Ops cloaking devices twos? Like, you'll probably make your money back. I just don't know how much you'll make, and I don't know when you'll make it. And then I think this is the last one for this week, is the Highest Yoda Research Labs. Interesting to see these spike with the drop dead date for POS basically written in the stars now. We see that that POS should be retired as soon as shortly after the drilling platforms come online, because everything you'd need a POS to do will have now been covered by Citadel and deployables. And Highest Yoda's has an extra bonus, but I can't imagine that it's really better than having a Sotoyo or a Ritaru. And it's interesting to see the prices spike. People might be buying these up as a collector's item. I'm glad that they spiked because I just sold off a bunch of them. That was more me liquidating backstock, and I just am not sentimental about these. And it'll be interesting to see. I wonder if CCP will actually go and fix the fix the drop for Hayasiota's research labs once POS are deprecated, or if this will end up being a mines problem all over again. Oh, we got one more before we leave. The large auxiliary nano pump 2s. We brought up last week that they were high, and we bring them up this week that they are low again. So I hope you made some money on my prediction that I didn't give. And if you bought, like, now would be a decent chance to buy in, but you're sort of betting on lightning striking twice, and it's risky. All right, and prediction review, we've got nothing because I was bad this week. And violence report, moving on. Active ships. So pardon me, the two graphs are not properly aligned because of a bug. That's my fault. Nothing interesting here in the mixes. The Rourke continues to be popular, but is tracking down. We're not seeing any big whelps other than this big, what looks like Stratios, or rattlesnake whelp. Again, that's a bad color. Here in the Macarial whelp on May Day, kind of funny. Looks like all those Macarials may have been lost in GE Tech 8JV. Things have been reasonably hot out in Null, looks like, in both GE and 7RM. Pretty good this week. Unfortunately, general PvP stats are down. And we didn't see anything saying that replacing all of these max is a problem. It looks like if they got whelped, it's really not that big a deal. And then active regions, we see Catch leading and Providence. Oh, look, people are actually fighting in Providence the last couple of days. Who would have known? That is where the anime war is supposedly going on. Anyway, let me thank everybody for tuning in this week. I have been your host, Lockefox. This has been the Eve Prosper Show. Do get subscribed to us on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. All you got to remember is Eve Prosper. That'll find us on all those platforms. Do join us on our Discord. That is the very best place to get in touch with me if you ever want to talk shop. And if you want to support the show, the very best way to do so is through our Patreon. We're using that as a way to lock up a fund for making sure that products can continue to run, so we can continue to scrape data, we can continue to serve data. If you want to support us in our space retirement to keep our products running, that is the best place to do so. If you can't support us, that's perfectly fine. I totally understand, but do keep tuned in, because even though this show might be ending, I think we're going to have some good treats in store for the people who do enjoy this kind of content. So do get subscribed, do follow along. Thank you again for tuning in live. If you want to tune in live, we are still broadcasting live on Friday nights at 0300 US time. That's Thursday night US. And I know that we were on a weird time slot this week. You can blame Comcast and power outages. So thank you, everybody who tuned in. We will be back next week. I have been your host, Lockefox. This has been the Eve Prosper Show, and we are out. Whew. But this is why we don't drink and cast, is because I get rambly. So, I'd like to talk to the YouTube chat for just a second. Christopher Mellon was talking about eliminating ISK faucets, and I think that's a terrible idea. And not to call him out, I don't think he means any ill by it. But liquidity is a strange beast, and it. Imagine it the water in your reservoir or the oil in your car. It allows transactions to occur. And though I understand the sort of gold bug idea that the money supply should be static and controlled and all this stuff, turns out that's really not a good idea. And when liquidity gets squeezed, it makes it hard to do the stuff that needs to be done. And I again, there's nothing wrong with any one statistic. The problem comes in when you look at the entire organism. So my problem looking at liquidity going on, yeah, and we'll be like now is the Q&A section, so feel free to ask questions and I'll answer them. But we're going to talk about liquidity and if so, as hot as it is, the problem is that you end up with ISK getting devalued to the point where it makes things, it's going to make people not in nullsec, it's going to hurt a lot of them, because we end up seeing all of the cash basically coming from one profession, and that profession being largely controlled by the coalitions and the renters. And it makes it so that they can throw money around like water, but then everybody on the center has a hard time affording the same thing, because we're sort of talking, you kind of get the California problem of like, I need to make $500,000 to live, but my job would be worth $50,000 if I did it in Iowa. Like, it's and if they got rid of the automatic ISK printing that is ratting, it means that there's less cash coming into the game. The less cash that flows into the game, the less options we have, the tighter things become. And I actually like seeing a lot of cash in the game, because I like people to remember that ISK is mostly worthless, that ISK is cheap, and it shouldn't stop them from playing the game. That, like, when you really sit down about it, how much is a billion ISK? Like, really? I understand for a bunch of you newbies who may have just started the game, $1 billion sounds like a lot, but for any vet who has their stuff in order, $1 billion ISK is kind of trivial, right? And especially with ISK being with Plex being at a price of 1.3 or even higher prices, it means that, you know, a billion ISK is only $10, and we start talking, you know, you start talking about like 100 million ISK being couch change, like when you really think about it. And I know it's a little callous, and it's me being, you know, rich 1%er kind of thing, but it's more for the fact of, I want people to be able to play with the money rather than just hoard it and think that it's really worth something. Like, because it's all fake money, right? And it falls from the sky, and it's all just a game at the end of the day. So you should go be playing the game. Clamsy, ratting is killing they're not red crosses anymore, killing NPCs. They automatically give you a bounty, and that bounty is an ISK faucet. It prints money into the game, just like the Federal Reserve running printing presses. It's reasonably easy to do, but the problem is that you need to be under the arm of somewhere that lets you do ratting. So you need to be in a coalition, in a corp that's out in nullsec, who has the opportunity to rat. So it's not, and you're gonna need some equipment to do so. I think you need something like a 300 million ISK starter kit essentially to get going, and you can probably do it for half that if you absolutely had to. I know Goon Swarm has turned ISK making into the most trivial thing ever, and they have all the best wikis about how to get started and how to just do it. So like when it comes down to it, like I like a devalued ISK, to be honest, that because the tiers of engagement stay pretty steady. Like when you talk about PvP in the macro, there are rungs on a ladder going all the way from like 1 million ISK trash fleets up through 100 million ISK small gangs, up to 300 million ISK is kind of the bar for Sov Warfare, a billion ISK starts to bring in your shinies and your capitals. 10 billion ISK brings in your supers. 50 billion ISK brings in your titans. And so those bars stay steady over time. If you charted what does it cost to do Sov Warfare, that unit, that ship unit costs 300 million ISK, and it's always cost 300 million ISK. So so again, my problem is that we talk about these stats in the aggregate, like what is a number that we care about, and it's a rate that's a problem more so than a traditional value. So my problem right now is I think the ratting incomes are about 50% higher than they should be. And with us going into a summer of a quiet summer, and with the PvP stats and the activity stats looking the way they are, that it's going to be a really quiet summer, that we can very quickly run into a case where nullsec can print off just fuckloads of ISK, while everyone else stays basically at the same rate they were at, and they can then trash the price of Plex. Price of Plex rises too fast, and people stop trying to sub that way. Even though you can go back to alphas, I mean, who really is going to be actively playing with an alpha? Like, alpha basically means that you get access to the in-game chat, and I think that though any single price, if you just put a price on the board, I can argue either way. I think that the opportunity to run too much cash into nullsec and it not to do anybody any good other than to end up as RMT bait or just in coffers doing goddamn nothing, means that it is that I'm worried with the ratting rate that we're going to end up like the Chinese server, where there are 3 major coalitions and they've cut the map into 3 sections, and there's no major warfare between them because they realize that making money is more important than fighting each other, and nothing is driving. All of their resources are essentially static, and they just end up sucking money out of the system to do whatever they want, and they don't end up fighting each other. They end up sitting stagnant, printing money, watching numbers go up, and getting fat and doing goddamn nothing with it. And that's what I'm really worried about. So I'm hoping that Recurve and Quant have a plan, and I hope they have a plan to release it by the end of July, before the summer break. But like the pill that Eve needs is a hard one to swallow, and that's one where ratting incomes basically get directly nerfed, and that's a hard pill to swallow. If CCP comes in and says, guess what, Anom rats are now worth 20% less, deal with it. There's going to be a lot of hate for that. The forum is going to fucking melt down about it, and with the Council of Null Management, they're going to throw a big fucking fit, and they're going to try and move their weight around. And it's a really hard gun to pull. So we'll see. I really want to see more tools for dynamic map stuff, so that grounds become fallow, and big groups need to spread out further and fight each other for more territory. But nothing I've seen on the roadmap, especially since FanFest, really tells me that's going to happen. Oh my god, so much whiskey. It's really good whiskey. Okay, it's not quote unquote really good whiskey. I don't feel like I'm licking a peat bog, but more questions. This is your time. I really wish the raw data was in the economic report this week because I would have talked more about it. I'd have to go look at the bottle. It was a gift, and it's a delicious gift. Coming out to Seattle, I've been drinking less beer and more, more cider for sure. I'd love to find Sizer. That was the thing I found about through one of my podcasts. It seems to be a mead, but instead of water, you use cider to make Sizer, which sounds like, oh my god, the most delicious thing ever. I just wish I could find it. Stefan Ternick is asking, should you sell POSs now or wait for CCP? So this is an eminent domain problem. CCP will buy them out, but I would expect to get a shit rate for them. So I would be looking for a chance to sell out now rather than hope that you get a fair price from CCP, because I expect whatever CCP puts on the offering block is going to be worth 20 or 30% less than you think is fair. Why is price dropping? Why is what price dropping? You got to be more specific. Jeez, you guys will retweet anything. Actually, I think that's what it is. It is a 16-year-old. I know that. Loki. Oh, I read that as like. So I think that it turns out all the T3s are dropping, and a lot of that has to do with weakness in the raw materials coming out of Wormhole. The prices have been falling there, and T3s are just not being swept up for as much product as coming out. So prices are falling because of a glut in supply. And we're seeing that both in the T3 cruiser markets and down in the T3 destroyer markets. Like it's just kind of shitty across the things. So I'm sorry for all you Wormhole bros, but to be honest, it looks like there's a lot of activity in Wormholes, and there's just not a lot of activity using T3s. So unless the T3 rebalance comes in the June patch and we see more stuff come out, so things need to change, and the T3s need to be consumed at a higher rate, given how much activity is going on in Wormholes at the moment. So that's what ends up doing the thing. Joshua 5 is asking, what's my profession? So trained as an electrical engineer, worked in wafer test, in memory testing. I'm a wannabe big data guy, and now I work at a antivirus security firm, and try to do performance testing for software development. I have a particular interest in making pipelines work for data, and that's why this show works the thing. So, and I appreciate Chris trying to figure out what my booze is, but it's in the other room, and I don't want to get it's rude for me to leave the stream while to figure out what the bottle says. Yeah, and I don't think that there's anything actively going on about stopping T3s. It's just that right now pirate battleships are the top of the meta, and they're the best. They're the best tool for the job. And until something like a Slippery Pete or something in a Tengu or a Loki or a Proteus really comes around as a good 300 mil ISK option, the pirate battleships are technically less skill points and less risk to deal with. If you whelp a T3 fleet, like, you're going to whelp a bunch of skill points, and for the same amount of money, you can have Tech 3 battleships, and, well, those are great until you're on the wrong side of the whelp fleet. Like, those tend not to die, but when they do, a lot of them die. So I don't know what to say. Stefan Tarnek is asking about the prediction app. So I released what's called the Profit API a few weeks back, and you can use it at adamforeve.eu, and we're also powering a service at Eve Mogul. The app idea was that, and this is more a case of I just give you the data, I don't have a tool for it, is that the performance we've been seeing on the Profit API is that a lot of these are having reasonably good predictive power in a 30-day regime, and the and Adam for Eve is tracking our accuracy over time. And so if you were looking to make a Eve mutual fund, the sort of thing I would be looking to do is take the output from that Profit API towards, let's say, the 100 core basket items. So that's things like moon goo, and raw moon goo, advanced materials, minerals, maybe the top PvP ships. We'll see how the performance goes on that. It's not been that great. Like, even just to look across the raw materials baskets and say, okay, well, I'm going to buy the 10 best predictions, or I'm going to take the 20 best predictions, throw out the top 5, grab the next 10, make marks of when it says the high point is going to be in the next 30 days, and look to sell on the high day on all of that, and basically automate my decision making and trust in the bot. And what I believe you'll end up doing is that, especially if you're playing the buy order market going into that, I think that you can really automate that 10% margin we're really looking for. And though you will probably lose on the bottom couple of picks, you'll end up making so much more on the wins that the losses will wash out. And the thing I expect is that which ranks end up being losers is going to move. So you won't know which 2 of the 10 will lose, but that's sort of the overarching idea, is that you mix a portfolio week after week, and you use the profit endpoint to sort of pick the biggest winners a few weeks out and try to buy into positions that the bot tells you to buy. The thing that's powering it is a library from Facebook called Profit. Like profit, like biblical, not profit like money. And if you want to know more, go to eveprosper.com. There's 2 or 3 blogs about how it got made. We're basically just throwing Eve data at it and packaging it. So we're not doing anything extra. It's actually kind of naive in the fact that I can't do like this is the thing I want you to predict, and I want you to seed off of these extra vectors is the thing I wish I could do. But beggars can't be choosers, and the fact that it does it in 20 seconds and that I don't have to train a machine learning bot means that you can make money off of my laziness. So there are some patterns I'd watch out for. Mainly this Pac-Man looking one that comes up where it diverges. It kind of says, I think it'll do something, but then it just has this divergent cone. And you have to give me a second to find one. Because that was like, if it does the divergent cone, like that just means that I'm going to put exponential bars on a thing and think that it's going to end up between these exponential bars. And so it's not better than random then. So give me a sec. Let's see. We talked about this. Does the Gila do it? I think the Gila might do it. Okay, so you need this button. And we're going to zoom this in. So this is close to the pattern I'm thinking of. This isn't exactly the pattern I want. Let's take a look again. That's not what I want. And I know that he's going to yell at me for using prod again, using dev again, but did nanotransistors do it? Ah, nanotransistors did it. Okay. So this is the pattern I worry about, is where it does this divergent cone. Means that it's kind of just taking a exponential bar and linearly predicting, and this is bad, right? This is pretty stupid, and not really. This is not a pattern I would bank on, because this tells me that the bot doesn't really know what to do. Is that it sort of has an up and a down, and they're fighting against each other, and it just doesn't really resolve well. And he doesn't have any forecast for it, so. Okay, well, now we're here in prod, and I don't think he cached this. He didn't cache this. Okay. So, on the blog is a link to how to do this on your own machine using R. It uses the same backing thing, but it has a little bit of extra experimentation in it. And that's more so you can do it on your own machine and play with the knobs. It's the exact same library. The library that powers this is the same library that powers the R script. The version that's out on the web, though, is Python. And if you want to look at our Python, you go to github.com/eveprosper. All of our Python is in there. So I have thought that this is good enough for government work, kind of thing, that though you have to be ready to lose some of these bets and take some negative returns. But the fact that you will be getting the net of it all will balance out positive, and it will lower your amount of effort put into the thing. I think is the worthy trade-off. The other thing. So let's see if I can put it on this side so you guys can actually see it. That's not what I wanted. But like, this is the buy and sell depth thing I was talking about. And like, okay, I can make a case that this positive trend is one to bank on, in that there's not a lot of downward buy pressure here, and there's There's a little bit of space here to get down to like what 265. But there's a lot of material to go through to get over 3 and to get to 3.2, which is, and it thinks you're going to get to 3.5, which means you got to eat through all of this and get through some 10 million units to get to 3.2 is a lot of eating to do, you know. But it's like I said, it's possible. It's not unreasonable. It's just unlikely. And this cone to me says, after doing some of this experimentation myself, this cone says, I don't know. It says I'm going to take the exponential curve, exponential variance, and I'm just going to plot that out because I've made this plot before without a machine learning engine. So I really like this, and Adam for Eve is doing his work for free. I think that this pairs well, especially if you're picking up a subscription over at Eve Mogul to do a lot of the tracking for you to make sure that you're making money. I think that, so it would take some botting work. It takes some tool work. Botting is the wrong word. Robot as in thing on your own machine that tells you when to do a thing, doesn't actually execute the thing. Please don't do bots. I'm not telling you to make bots. But something that would, digest 100 of these endpoints on a weekly basis and basically give you targets over the next 30 days of look for buy orders, look for sell orders, and basically take a lot of the guessing work out and say, okay, well, you should be, let me go eat the ESI endpoint to actually crunch the orders out there to get the right prices. Let me crunch the profit endpoint to get an outlook for a sell day, a sell price, a sell target, and a sell target date. And let me look for buy orders. Let me look for setting buy orders like it would fit in a spreadsheet. It would be a sucky spreadsheet. And please don't, I'm not giving keys to put profit in a spreadsheet because the way that GDoc works is going to destroy the engine that runs the thing. I don't think Flask and GDoc are going to play very nice until I have a couple of fixes done. I'm trying to get there, but like nobody's going to write their own custom GDoc. And so I have to go roll it into my tools. And well, if it's my tools, then you got to get on my waiting list. So but yeah, it's kind of one of those things that I want someone else to do it so they can, get the blog thing, they can run their own stuff, and they can look like a super genius and tell the world about how, I used machine learning in Eve to make a bunch of fake money. And like we can all work together towards a richer future. So Borguy is asking if I've thought about putting my data sets into TensorFlow. So it's on the to-do list, but my problem right now is data pipelining. And I'm going to talk more about this either on the very last show of Eve Prosper or as I try to spin up some pilot shows for what's following Eve Prosper. So my problem right now is that we rely on MySQL to be our database. And MySQL is fine, MySQL is good, but I can't get the enthusiastic Python 101 guys who like to watch the show, who are looking to, learn Python, maybe get their feet wet in some of the data science stuff, looking to do something better than a spreadsheet. I can't use them because they have to learn Python and scraping web pages and data integrity and SQL. And I've overrun the budget of how many give a fucks they can really muster by a factor of 2 or 3. Because it's just hard to add new data sets or to make sure that they stay going. And then you have to learn how cron jobs work, and you have to learn how stuff gets deployed, and the versioning sucks, and I don't have good templates, so you have to learn how to do our CLI and logging structure, and I just don't have good examples for any of it. It sucks. The whole thing sucks. So I want to make it easy so that you can, on your own machine, if you were a Python 101 guy, to come in and say, okay, well, I want to do something for you, and I want to scrape some ESI endpoint. Great. I can always use another scraper. Here is a cookie cutter, which I've started the cookie cutter process. We'll see how far we get to actually get there. Number 2 was we are trying to make it so the data, so when you go to write to a database, it does everything on your local machine in a way you can look at it like a fucking human. And so I have some pieces to get that going. And then once you do a PR back to the prod that says, okay, well, I did a bunch of work. Here's a pull request. And you and I can sit down and look at it and say, okay, well, you need to fix this because it's not up to snuff. And, let's make sure that your schema is right. And, do the review really quick just to make sure that we're on the same page so that everybody knows what's going on. And then once it gets committed into prod, it magically switches over to prod and gets deployed automatically and starts slurping up data without any extra work from me. Because though I got close before, my problem was that even though I made it easier for people to add new data from them, I still made it difficult for me to validate their data coming in. And it still meant that if you spent 2 weeks writing a thing, I would have to spend at least 1 week integrating it into my thing. And there was no way that you could make my life easier because I thought I was so fucking smart and I wasn't. And I made a bunch of really bad decisions and it just kept biting me and biting me and biting me. So I have a plan. That plan is to go to Mongo. That plan is to make JSON schemas and do some magic with the libraries and the collections so that we can do continuous integration and continuous deployment, and we can get all of the data running through Mongo in a NoSQL store. And then when things need to be updated, like if an endpoint gets deprecated, we get the client calling the Discord saying, hey guys, by the way, my endpoint died. So humans get alerted automatically. And then when it gets updated and if the keys change, I can increment the version on the schema, and we can basically make everything move together in a continuous deployment sort of way and not be hamstrung by needing to have 2 or 3 full-time, probably 2 full-time SQL guys if I go with traditional SQL. And if we went traditional SQL, I'd probably end up having to buy Microsoft SQL because I really want the R integrations that are over there. So, I have a plan. We're at about 80% of the design done. I am at 80% of the design done. I'm still working through some of the Mongo documentation to make sure I don't run into some really ugly gotchas, because the reason I'm on MySQL right now is mostly because Workbench is amazing. It really lets you do everything with a good GUI and make sure you know what the fuck you're doing. And I know that everybody, people in their SQL flavors are just like people with their Linux flavors. Red Hat is always better than Ubuntu and Ubuntu's for squares, or, oh, I'm just such a fucking hipster, I'm using Mint, whatever. And frankly, I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. I just need to make sure that my data gets up there and it works and it's easy to do. Like those are my gotchas, is that I don't really care if there is if my database is 10% more efficient because Postgres is just the dog's bollocks. Because then I need to do a bunch of goddamn SQL maintenance. And SQL management is a full-time job. If you want to do 100 gigabytes or 200 or 500 gigabytes, which is our spec for Eve stuff, is we're at 300 gigabytes of bullshit right now, and we're spec'd for 500. It's a full-time dude's job to make sure that indexes are being created, and you're ready for the right joins, and if you really need to add a column, yeah, we can do that, but we got to do a migration script, and we got to do some debugging, and if you want to do replication, you got to have all this replication and shit. And like, I don't give a shit. I just don't give a shit. Because that's not solving my problem. That's not making more data. That's not plotting more data. That's not leveraging data. That's being a goddamn nanny and a janitor. And though I pay a guy to help me with that, we have a sysadmin guy who runs our box right now. And like, I adore him, and I paid for his Eve account for a whole year for that work. And I've sent him bordering on $400 worth of hardware at this point. Like, I don't want to do that. I just want the database to fucking work. And I just want to have a pipeline that makes sense, where I can explain to you over a beer and say, okay, look, ignore that it's NoSQL, because we're going to treat it like it's SQL. Because once it gets out to pandas is going to be your SQL layer. Like, if you need to do joins, you're not going to write a query for joins. You're not going to do any of that shit. You're going to select the data you need from the collections that you need it from. And if you have to join, that's the app's problem. It's not the database's problem. And if you're making an app, like, okay, so we get the front end of our pipeline done, we get it in Mongo, and Mongo balloons up to a terabyte of data, and everybody's happy. And you go to the other side and you say, well, man, I'm trying to pull these big queries out of Mongo, but the indexes kind of suck, and the performance just isn't there. It's taking all this extra time. Well, you know what I can say is that since we're containerizing our apps, what if your container has a cron job that keeps up a SQLite database so that you get that SQL performance? The data tables are already ready to come in to a SQL store for the most part, except for zkillboard data. That's not SQL. That takes some work to get SQLized. If you absolutely positively need SQL performance, then put it in your app. pull the data you need off of the main store, put it in your container, and then you can have all the SQL performance you want in your replicated layer. And it's your fucking problem because you designed it, and it's your problem for your data. As long as the core store, I can pull it into R and do analytics on it, and I can easily get it into pandas for production work. That's all I give a shit about. As long as I can get it moved, get it queried, get it in and out from a central hub, and have enough performance that it only takes that, like, I can get everything I need in a minute. Like, that's the perf I need. I don't need that much perf because this is not serious business sub-millisecond bullshit. This is hobby grade, make some graphs for a fake spaceship game. And the amount of consternation we give for, oh, well, this database would be able to do it in 12 milliseconds, and MySQL is going to take 100 milliseconds, and that's a 10 times perf increase. Like, I don't give a shit because my schemas blow, because I don't know how to design good schemas, because it takes a full-time dude to do third normal form and to design this shit and do decent joins and keep it all updated. And I'm spending more time keeping my database running than actually doing real work, because the shit you don't need me to do database work. There are a million dudes out there who can do database work. I've known techs who can barely build their own computer, who became database admins and can sling SQL like the best of them. And not to shit on them, because they do great work and I love my SQL dudes, but it's half what you pay me, because you need a guy who can do advanced statistics, you need a guy who can do advanced visualizations, and a guy who can containerize and productize that shit. I can get 10 guys that can do the database stuff. I can't find anyone else who can do the data science part of it, the part where you actually go looking for the needles in the haystack, that the parts that really need the attention and the effort. I don't need to rebuild the wheel for the 10th fucking time because I read a SQL book and now I can do third normal form. Like, I'll pay a guy for that. If that's what it comes down to, like, I can find a guy and I can pay him what he's worth. Actually, I can pay him more than he's worth, and I will be a happy camper, and he'll do all that work on the side. And then, but I can't find that guy because it takes a lot of work. It's a lot of man hours to make SQL really sing. And that's fine when you have less than a dozen tables, for instance. And if you do stuff like Fuzzy Steve does, where, you know, it's one app, one or two tables, and everything sort of, you know, just builds on itself. He has a perfectly acceptable schema management thing going on. But, like, the amount of extra work that goes into every fucking app to do every database is so frustrating to me. Is that... And it's doubly frustrating that it's not inherently obvious, so I can't even train guys. I have such a hard time even bringing people in, because I'm like, okay, well, here's the sexy part that you want to do, like scraping websites, isn't that cool? And, oh, making graphs, isn't that cool? And, ooh, working with terabytes of data, ooh, gigabytes of data, isn't this cool? I'm finally using all the threads on my machine. Isn't that neat? That's sexy. You know, it's not sexy. You know what nobody wants to do after they do spreadsheets? It's like, you know what's really better than spreadsheets is a program that's like spreadsheets but done completely on the command line, and where all of the errors are arcane and all of the configurations are magic, and there's all of this tuning and stuff. And I know that there's people out there who love it. I know that it tickles plenty of people, and there are whole industries built around it. But I'm not going to find that guy for Prosper. I'm not going to... I just can't. I can't find that guy, and no malice towards the guys who enjoy it, and I love the people who do love it, because they're not paid what they're worth, and they should get paid a lot more, because the world does revolve around them. But, like, you can't sell that to video game people. Like, you come to me and you say, I want to learn Python, and I say, well, you got to learn SQL first. And they're like, but this sucks. This is boring. This is like spreadsheets, but worse. Like, yes, come on in. And they're like, never mind. I'm gonna go get high and watch MST3K instead. and I can't compete against that. So and the point of the whole rant is that I'm going to Mongo so that I can add data in a less I can do data in a faster pipeline, and I can move faster between collecting data and leveraging data. My problem with SQL isn't that it isn't powerful, and good SQL is great. Like, SQL that's done well and SQL that's done proper is excellent, but you spend a lot of time. It's hard to train people in it, right? It's hard to get my pain is that there are a lot of people who come to me and say, I want to learn Python. I want to learn how to do this. Like, data science sounds like it's going to be the shit for the next 10 years. And I want to get ahead, and I want to do stuff. Like, your show is cool. I want to do what you do. And I say, okay, that's great. here's the Python stuff you have to learn, and here's the stuff that you can do to like use it today. But then SQL doesn't have that sexiness, and SQL just feels like spreadsheets on hard mode. And I know the people who know SQL will understand the fine art of SQL, and that denormalization and indexing and normal forms are excellent, and indexing forms will, save the world, and you can join all this great data, and you can build these reports in line and all this stuff. And I understand there's a whole bunch of people out there like that. And especially if you're like a business intelligence guy, I know that you can run circles around me in SQL queries any day of the week. My problem is I don't really need SQL queries. SQL queries are not the data that I need, because I need to do statistical math, and average is not statistical math. So I need to already get my data out of the database and into something like Pandas or R. And SQL can do that. SQL does do that. And R has great connectors, Python has great connectors, and SQL Alchemy is just fine for what you need to do. Pandas already has a thing built into SQL Alchemy. The problem then becomes somebody has to do all of the SQL bitch work to make it sing. Like if I could just pay a guy who would do all the SQL bullshit for me, and I wouldn't have to think about it. I could just write scrapers, and I could send him like a table schema. Like, I'm going to go push this into your database. Here's a table schema. Hope you're ready for it. That would probably work. But like, I need a full-time dude to basically be my catcher for all my data as fast as I want to make it. And I just can't get that guy. The whole time I've had to teach people how to do SQL. And so I end up being the quote unquote expert. I'm not a SQL expert. I only know enough to basically get myself into trouble so that I can do some queries that if you want to ask a trivial question, I can answer your trivial question about, how many, tell me all the dead end systems with a status of whatever. And, tell me which ones have money moons in them. And like, I can do all that shit or plot out the hottest PvP systems in the last 24 hours. Like, great. That's great. SQL's great at it. No problem whatsoever. But like, the work is bitch work. The people who do it are not bitches. It's not fun work. And like, I totally get it. And if I had a better team, I'd be going up and getting a Microsoft SQL instance set up, and we'd be integrating R into it, and we just run off that and go nuts. But I would need a full-time partner who did all the SQL work so that I don't have to do the SQL work, because like, me doing the SQL work, 1, gets it done poorly. 2, I don't enjoy doing it. And 3, means that I'm spending half of my dev time doing stuff that isn't my competitive advantage. The thing that makes me valuable is the visualizations, is the statistical analysis, is the productizing and management. So like, that's what I need. And because I can't get that guy, I can't use SQL. So we're going to throw SQL out. We're going to go NoSQL. We're going to go Mongo, so that I can use a robot to do the continuous deployment aspect, so that I can say, okay, you made your data, and you made a scraper, you made a validator, you added to a PR, we review it. As soon as it's approved, the PR gets updated. It pushes the schema up into the database. The database then updates the library. Everything gets pushed out into production and just starts up automatically. It doesn't take a bunch of work from our admin to make it run. it doesn't take a bunch of work on my side to finish your work because you just made the scraper that put the data in the right shape. Like, that's all I want you to do. So I just want you to go out, make the API call, put it in the right shape, and prepare it to run into the database. I don't want to have to train every CS 101 guy how to use SQL. That's the root of my problem. And like the one that the thing that killed me was like pandas can write straight into SQL. The problem is pandas doesn't do collision detection, and like to do collision checks on a pandas write, oh my god, it just fucking sucks because once it's in a data frame, you don't want to go row by row. So we're not doing SOAP. I'm sorry. I understand why there's SOAP, but SOAP is for grandparents. We're doing REST. I'm almost done with my drink, so we're getting pretty savage here. So it's not that the technology is evil. It's not that the people who do it are bad at what they do. They're excellent at what they do, but it's a specialty. So it's I can get around most of my problems by going to Mongo, by going to NoSQL. It allows me to do everything that needs to be done and let robots deal with the bullshit, because I can program robots, right? And if I can make a generalist robot that understands like how to reject bad queries and how to do all, make sure that data goes in correctly and make sure it's easy to pull data out. And as long as I can get R into the thing, like we can go to the races, and I can do all the work I want to do. But like, I don't have a business intelligence guy who is ready to help me do the SQL design. And it's too late. It's too late to get that guy because I'm already going to Mongo because I need Mongo for work. And like the whole Prosper thing is just an Ouroboros for learning stuff at work. So SQL is powerful. It's useful, but it's not the right solution for my problem. And I can buy more hardware, and I can spend more robot time, but I can't spend more of my own dev time, because that's what's really been hamstringing me for about a year here on Prosper, is that I've had more than a dozen people come and say, I'd love to learn Python. And I've had a few people even try to help, but I can't take on beginners. And it breaks my heart because this is the sort of project I needed when I was starting Python. And I really want to mentor people into doing good code, but my project is in such a form that only intermediate Python coders can contribute. Or you need to have, you have to already have sort of a CS background to even play along, and that's unfair. And I love it when I get those people. Like we had a guy come through and finish out a big set of test suite for me, which I left out there because this again was a thing where it was like, I need tests on this thing, and it's going to take me like a whole weekend to write it. But like half of the tests are already done. So if you want to know what PyTest does, here's a PR, and if you fill it, I'll send you a Plex. But that's an intermediate problem. Testing is not an intro to Python problem. Testing, I really enjoy testing, but that's because I have brain damage. So yeah, it's. Lucky Ace Quad 5 is asking how to learn Python. If you don't know anything about coding, Codecademy is excellent. They have an interactive code browser. If you're a books kind of guy, Python Cookbook is excellent. And if you already know a language, Learn Python the Hard Way is an excellent resource. But understand on that last one, he's fucking wrong about Python 3. Python 3 is the future. Don't drink any of his Kool-Aid about Python 2.7. those are my resources there. And I've been getting a small little group of guinea pigs together, ranging from intermediate to beginner, for Python stuff. That because what I want to do, I still like doing the office hours. Like I could do a weekly office hours stream and answer Python questions. And I have a few people who want to learn Python, but they vary from I've never coded before in my life to I wrote a Visual Basic script once to I work in another language, but I would like to get Python on my thing. And I want to help bring my knowledge back down to people. Like I cut through a bunch of bullshit, and I want to help people who are like me, who don't think they can code or think it's for other people or aren't smart enough to do it. And I want to show you that I'm an idiot and I can do it, and so can you. Like, have no fear. We'll all make it happen. And as we get through like the best practices, you guys can, peel off and go do the stuff you want to do. And like, it doesn't have to be about solving my problems. I like to solve a few of my problems just because they're enthusiastic 101 guys that I'd love to get a little bit of time out of. And I have Plex, so I'd love to pay for your account. But like, I really want to go take a page out of. I want to start up a show that's in the vein of Partially Derivative or Talk Python to Me or Programming Throwdown, where we can talk about this is what we worked on, this is where we're going, and we can demystify a lot of the magic behind data science or finance or economics, and continue to do what we do here in Eve Prosper, but have a more real life bend to it. And then as my closing remark for Joshua 5, we're going to talk about Python 2 to 3 really quick. Python 2, so there's a whole bunch of history about it, but there was a split in Python about 10 years ago where they released Python 3, and there's a lot of stuff that's not strictly backwards compatible. Specifically, there's some bytecode stuff, blah, blah, blah. You don't really care. The TLDR is that when it comes to writing Python, if you have to maintain old code, you should be writing 2.7 and just live in 2.7, just stay there. But if you are writing new code, if this is something that your company isn't even doing, you should come over to Python 3. And it's because that's where the rest of the world is heading. The packaging works better. The importing, there's a lot of special import tools that make your life easier. Async is becoming an incredibly powerful tool, especially in the web sphere. And that backwards compatibility is not going to come back to 2.7. There will never be a 2.8. So there is a strong divide between the two, and there's some people who are going to be holdouts forever on. It might as well be a religious issue. But I can tell you right now, everything that Prosper writes going on now is 3.5 and up, and we will never go back to 2.7 work. The old libraries are 2.7, so like I do have some sins, but any new code that we write has to be Python 3.5 or better, and it's going to open up a lot more opportunities for us down the line. It makes packaging. There's a lot of packaging things that go along with that. There's a lot of app design that goes along with that. And as we get into asynchronous work, I'm not writing async 2.7. Fuck that shit. I'm not writing threading in 2.7 because things like Curio are going to make that a lot easier. And the only place I'm going to give you credence and say, okay, this is the one place you can use 2.7 is if you absolutely positively have to do your own encryption. Because it turns out a lot of the encryption libraries haven't really been ported well. And that may not continue to be true. Like at some point somebody has to get a hair up their ass. But like the one and only place I've seen a compelling case for staying on 2.7 is encryption. And that is when you have to do encryption in Python, which I would love not to do do your encryption in C. Yeah. So we're a 3.5 house. We will continue to be a 3.5 house. Our logger will not work in 2.7. Our database connector will not work in 2.7 because I will make sure it doesn't work in 2.7, and I will reject any PR that adds Futurize to it. So with that, we're like a half hour past my drop dead point here. Thank you everybody who tuned in live. If you want to talk more about this, if you didn't get enough, links to join the Discord are down in the doobly-doo. And feel free to talk there. We do track the show. All the show code progress happens there. There's a GitHub channel and a DevFleet channel. If you want to hear more about Python stuff, I can't do it. I don't think I can do another office hours for 2 more weeks. But when I can do one, we can talk more about Python then. And we'll be back next week at the same regular time, same regular channel. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you. Please do join the Discord. Please do get subscribed. And we will be back next week at our normal time, Thursday night US, 0300. Be there and fly safe and everything.